Hi there, I'm Lauren and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Sweet Smiling Soul, where I talk about all things sewing. Today I am working on a project which I haven't actually tried before. It's creating a zipper pouch made from fabric scraps. So I have a large stash of fabric scraps that I am trying to get through. So when I come across certain projects on Instagram or Pinterest where there is a chance to use up my scraps, I take note and hope that I can put aside some time to create that at some point. I'm trying to minimize the amount of sewing that I do. So it is a sewing project, but I don't want to be attaching a whole bunch of pieces together. I kind of just want to make this project simple and quick, and if I can get this done in an hour or two, amazing. I got the inspiration for this project on Instagram, and I can't actually pronounce the handle for Instagram, so I'm just going to put a screenshot here of the account and I'll link it in the description below. Basically, this woman puts together a zipper pouch using fabric scraps, a little bit of wadding and tulle on top. So I've never done a project like that before, but I thought it was quite clever because she's not actually sewing all the scraps together before attaching it to the rest of the project. Basically, for the top layer of the zipper pouch, she's just kind of layered the wadding and then the fabric scraps on top, and then she's put tulle for the top layer, and then she's just put it all through her machine and quilted over it. I really like that idea, so I'm gonna see if I can do that. And yeah, it just takes like a really big step out of the whole project because, you know, normally I would sew each patch together and then create the top layer of the zipper pouch, or the outside layer of the zipper pouch. So I'm going to attempt to do that today and hope for the best. Hopefully it turns out the way I want it to. Now I'm going to stop talking and just show you what I'm talking about. So I've kind of half planned this project already. It's been sitting in my cupboard for a couple of months now, and basically one night I found a piece of wadding in my cupboard, and then I started placing some scrap fabrics on it, thinking I might use something like this, and then I got distracted and never came back to it. So it's kind of ready to go. I just need to iron out some of these pieces and trim them down so that they fit within this piece of wadding. But I felt like the wadding that I had on hand was the right size for a purse. Obviously it's going to be folded. Then I also had a zipper that was also the perfect fit. I also have this tulle that was supposed to be for my wedding dress, but then I changed my mind and went with a floral tulle instead. So I've had this spotted tulle in my stash ever since, and I'm wondering what to do with it. So it's the only kind of tulle I have, so I feel like this is what's going to be used to go on top, and I think it should look okay. You should still be able to see the patchwork through the tulle, hopefully. Then I've got my lining fabric, which is just some spotted cotton. I think the first step is just for me to start getting the pieces organized and playing around with the placement of them on top of this wadding here, and then I'll go from there. So if I just like move these pieces aside, you can see the wadding now. So I do have to trim this down a little bit. There's a kind of cuts in a little bit here. It's got a long bit there, so I think I'll just trim it down and make sure that it's all even. And if you can imagine, the purse will be kind of this shape, this size. I'm not actually sure what I'll use the purse for yet, but I don't want it to be too small. Like it would be, I feel like the length is fine. It might just be the height that needs to change. So the finished piece measures in length 35 centimeters and width is 22 centimeters. So it's all pretty even now. So now I'm going to cut a lining piece so that it's the same measurement, and yeah, make sure that that's ready to go, and then work on the patchwork design. So I've cut the lining piece, the top tulle layer, and the wadding is also ready to go. So now I'm going to start playing around with the pieces and trimming them down, ironing them and seeing what looks good. I'm not going to be too fussy about this because I feel like when it comes to patchwork, you know, most things look really nice when they're all kind of just scattered around, and it doesn't really need to be perfect. That's why I like projects like this, because you can just kind of get creative but let go of the perfectionism and, you know, just enjoy what's unfolding in front of you. So something like this, I might not even need all these pieces really. Yeah, I think it's not going to be too complicated. So if I kind of roughly go off that, just grab each piece and iron it out, trim it down a little bit. You can always trim things down a little bit more if they're too big later. But I'm just going to kind of start cutting out rough shapes, mostly squares and rectangles I think, and I'll cut this one in half. I could also use my rotary cutter here, but I'm at the ironing board, it's easier. I'm just going to do it this way. I'll keep going. I think this one's alright. I might just trim down the frayed edges. The reason why I want to get rid of the frayed edges is because once the tulle's on it, hopefully they don't fray anymore. Like, I'm going to put the tulle on top and I'm also going to quilt over it. So I'm hoping that stops these edges from fraying, because we're not actually sewing these together. We're just going to sit them there and then sew on top, if that makes sense. In our new place, we're moving into a 3-bedroom, and one of the rooms is going to be a dedicated craft room, so I'm really excited about that. I just think it's important that I maybe get a standing table, because yeah, the older I get, the more pain I'm in when I have to crouch down on the floor to do my cutting, or even just kind of hunching over the machine can be tiring as well. And yeah, I think it's going to make a difference if I get a standing table, have a bit more table room. So I'm not using the ironing board as a table. I mean, it does the job, and I know I can get by using what I have, but yeah, obviously when you upgrade your office space, like whether it's a desk or your chair or whatnot, and make it a little bit, your workspace a bit more ergonomic, it's really important, and you do notice a difference. So I'm really looking forward to making that one of the priorities for when we move in to the new place. So yeah. So I've cut out all the pieces and trimmed them down and placed them where I think they look okay. And now I've just gone over it gently and pressed them down, make sure everything's flat. I didn't want to press too hard because I don't want to put too much heat on the wadding underneath. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good for now. So there's no gaps or anything. I can't see any wadding coming through. I think it's good to go. So from here I'm going to get my tulle and place it here. There is a wrong side and right side here. I just have to figure that out. Yeah, I think this is the right side. Right, so now place that on there, and you can still see the colours coming through. It's not as vibrant with the tulle on top, but I think once I sew it, it might look okay. So from here I'm going to pin that down. I really hope this works. You don't want to be working on a project that is a waste of time. I'm just going to put pins where there's like a connection. So where the fabric's connecting to other fabric, I'll just put like a pin in there just to make sure it's all okay and it's not going to move. If this works, I am going to do this a lot more. I really like it when I find projects that I can use to get rid of my fabric scraps. It's really important to me to just use what I have and not create so much waste. I don't know if I've made this process a lot harder by pinning all over the place because you can't even see the pins, but I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and what I'm going to do is just sew diagonal lines all the way across, and then I'm going to repeat and going in the other direction, so it'll be creating little squares or diamonds. So once that's done, I'll bring it back to the board and we will go from there. I've just finished sewing the lines diagonally across and then again in the opposite direction, and this is what it looks like at the back. So the fabric did shift a little bit around some parts of the wadding, but I think that's okay. Like, there was plenty of it and there are no gaps in here or anything, like you can't see the wadding poking through. So I think what I'm going to do now is just trim that off and make sure that everything is still rectangular and like neat. I've checked to see if the zipper is going to work, and I think it is. So I think my next thing is just to trim it up, make sure that the edges are straight, and then I will start adding the zipper and the lining to the purse. I've trimmed the edges of that, and I'm guessing it like shrunk a little bit while I was sewing along here. I guess it just brings it in a tiny bit, so I did have to trim down the lining as well, but it's still a good size. I'm still happy with it, and I've checked the zipper and everything, and I think it's still gonna work. So the next step is to basically layer the top layer and the lining, and then kind of sandwich the zipper in between. So basically you put the lining piece down, then you add the zipper, and then you layer on top with the outer layer, and you just pin all three layers together. So there's the lining, the zipper, and the top layer, and everything should be right sides together. I can start to pin the three layers together like that and keep going along. So layer the lining, the zipper, and then the outer layer, and I continue all the way to the end. So that's that layer. Now you sew along here, along the edge, as close as you can to the zipper, but you don't want to be on it. So we'll use a zipper foot to sew this. I'm also going to undo this part a little bit as I go, and then when it's under my machine I'll zip it back up to get it out of the way. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to sew that on, and then I'll do the other side. Once this side of the zipper is sewn on, I'll flip it around and I'll catch the other exposed edge of the zipper. So I am going to use my zipper foot for this step, and it's just going to make it easier for me to attach the zipper to the purse. Once I've finished the zipper step, then I'm going to switch back to my regular foot and continue on with the next step. So I've sewn one side of the zipper here, and you can see I've kind of sewn about halfway in towards the zipper. Because this is such bulky fabric here, like with the wadding and everything, I think it's best to just leave a little bit of space away from the zipper so that it's easy for the zip to open and close. If you give yourself a good 5mm to work with, it's a good amount of space to make sure that you can open and close the zip. So I'm just doing an extra step here, which is top stitching the lining to the seam on the inside. So I've sewn one side of the zipper, and then I've just kind of flipped the lining out, and you can see here that the back of the zipper is lying flat, and I've just started doing a top stitch all the way along here just to kind of make sure that this kind of tucks away from the zipper when it's all turned right side out. So I'm doing this to one side here, but once I join the other two ends to the other side of the zipper, it might be a little bit more complicated to do this step. So I'm just going to take it easy, and I'm going to show you what I do to make sure that this is staying down and attached to the seam and out of the way of the zipper. So I've sewn both sides of the zipper now, and I've turned it partially right side out. It's a little bit tricky because the zipper is attached here already. If you were using a zipper that wasn't attached and you attached this little thing at the end, then this step would be easier, but because I'm using a zipper that's already got a little handle or whatever you call it attached, I have to do it this way. My aim now is to top stitch just along this lining fabric here, and I'm top stitching it to the seam on the inside there. I've taken off this part of my sewing machine because I want to try and get this under my machine as far as I can towards the bottom of the zipper. That's the plan, and I'm just top stitching along there. I'm going to try that now and see how it goes, and then I'll give you an update once I've done that step. So I've managed to top stitch all the way down to the end here, and it actually does work where it kind of sits up on my machine. When I take this part of my machine away, it gives me more room to just go all the way down to the end. So I'm really happy about that, and you can see the top stitch is happening at the back there. So yeah, that worked. So if you have a zipper like this, I advise you to maybe try this if you like. Maybe you know a better way, but this is working for me right now. So I just thought to share that with you if you have a similar zipper. Now that I've sewn the zipper in, I'm going to sew the side seams, and I've opened up the zipper halfway, or you might like to open it all the way before you do this next step. That will just help turn this project right side out if you've got the zipper undone. So I've opened up the zipper, and what I'm going to do is just sew straight lines all the way along both sides. It's just that one side I'm going to leave open on the lining section so that I can turn it right side out. So now I've sewn the sides, I have left a gap in the lining, and I'm just going to put my hand through, go past the zipper, and just grab the outer layer, and I'm going to gently pull it through the hole. So once I get a chunk of it through, then I'm just going to slowly keep pulling and turning right side out. Poking the corners with my finger as best I can, then poking up towards near the zipper, and if I push the lining in, I can see that it's coming together. So I'm going to close this zipper and see if it works. Once everything is turned right side out, I'm just going to take the lining and close up that hole that we left open. So I'm just going to top stitch as close as I can to the edge, and then we'll see how it all looks at the end. What do you think of the pouch? I think it's quite cute. I did make a couple of mistakes along the way, mostly to do with the zipper insertion. So I first put the zipper on, and then I probably went too close to the edge of the zipper, which meant that when I turned it right side out the first time, I couldn't actually close it. So that was lesson one. And then lesson two was that the lining was kind of poking out a lot. So again, I would try to close the zipper and it would catch on the lining fabric. I'm happy that I unpicked everything, started again, because now it's worked out really well. So to stop the lining from poking out and getting caught in the zipper, I ended up top stitching along the edge there on the inside, which I showed you in the steps, but that was the second time round. So the first time round I didn't actually do that, and it was a bit of a disaster. So I highly recommend, if you decide to do this project, to stitch down the lining near the zipper so that it's not going to be poking out, and to leave enough room away from the zipper so that it can easily close without any problems. So yeah, it was a really good learning experience, and I'm happy with how it's turned out. I think I would use this for maybe some pens or maybe even beauty products. I'm not sure yet, but I love little zipper pouches like this. You can never have too many, and I love the quilted look of this one. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. I'm quite happy with that. Let me know if you decide to make one yourself. If you enjoyed watching me put together this small purse, then I invite you to like, comment, let me know your thoughts. I would love to know if you decide to make one for yourself. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I'm so grateful to have you here watching. Thanks again, and I will see you soon.